Looking for a cosmic adventure like no other? ZATSWAN, Multiversal Guardian is a high-stakes comic book journey through the multiverse with stunning art and an unforgettable hero. Get your copy today in ebook and paperback formats. Link in the description.
Hello everybody, this is Neil Allen, the creator of the comic ZATSWAN Multiversal Guardian, which you can purchase in the link below on Amazon in paperback or ebook format, and please pick that up and leave reviews. That would be helpful. And I'm going to do another comic deep dive, and last time I did a Green Lantern comic. I will get back to that series, but I do want to talk about another book that came out. This was probably, I'm sure there's a date in here, but I'm guessing that this one came out likely in the 1985 or 1986, and this is the Robotech Masters series. So there's a lot to talk about with this. First of all, fascinatingly, we have a black male lead in this comic who is Bowie Grant, working opposite a white female alien love interest who is Musica. And this is actually very groundbreaking, because this is something that you did not see. This is, as it says over here, as seen on TV. So this is based on the Robotech show that was on television in the mid-1980s. Very, very groundbreaking for a lot of reasons, but a couple of those reasons were its black-white interracial relationships, and this is not the only one that happened. In the previous Robotech series, which is called Macross, you also had Roy Fokker and Claudia Grant, a white guy with a black woman. That was a prominent relationship in the show, and in the follow-up to Macross, which was Robotech the Masters series, or as it is sometimes called Southern Cross, you have this relationship here between Bowie Grant and Musica. And, you know, it's not often talked about. It's not that it's never talked about. I've seen it kind of mentioned here or there, but it's a feature that's not often talked about, especially when people just generally talk about Robotech, which that's fine, but I thought that I would actually be the one to shed some light on that, because it is very groundbreaking. Not just that it happened, but that it happened in kids' television in America. And that America is an important point, because the only reason this did happen at all is because the origins of the show are not American. I noticed something kind of similar too. Like when I was watching Space Cases, the old Nickelodeon show, you had Harlan Band, who was played by Walter Emmanuel Jones III, who is famous for playing Zack on Power Rangers, the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and he had like a romance going on with Catalina, who is played by, her name's Jewel something, I forgot, but she's famous for being on Firefly too. And I was like, wow, this is kind of amazing when I was watching it. That show, I think, aired probably in the mid-90s, like maybe around 1995. 1995, 1996 perhaps. I was like, this is kind of fascinating. You're having an interracial romance between a black guy and a white alien, we'll just call her a white girl, on kids television at that time. It's kind of groundbreaking. But then I was like, this does like have a really different flavor. And then I noticed that Space Cases is it was written by Peter David, you know, who comic fans will definitely know about, famous for his runs on Incredible Hulk and Aquaman and Supergirl, to name some. But for the most part, Space Cases is, as I understand it, largely a Canadian production. I'm like, okay, that explains it actually. And that gets back to the correlation of this. Why did this even happen? Because the origins of it weren't American. And if Americans really had their way, they would have put like a stop to that. And I'm not just like speculating on that. I'm not just complaining, like looking for stuff. No, stuff like this actually was not allowed, like in Hollywood. Um, I've heard stories about how like Denzel Washington had romantic scenes in a movie with Julia Roberts, and those scenes were like cut from the movie. And Will Smith was has talked about, as I understand it, how he was told not to have like white love interests early in his career for box office reasons. So it's not just a matter of coincidence that things like this have been, um, not featured. It was a matter of policy not to feature that because essentially the studios were afraid of a backlash from certain members of the audience, or were afraid of alienating certain members of the audience. Like, so um yeah, it wasn't coincidence, it was actually really going on. They weren't going to have any of that. So it's kind of groundbreaking that in 1985, let me crack this comic open. It's done by Comico, or some call him Comico. um this is pretty groundbreaking that this show Robotech had this, but I can get more into the reasons as to actually why. Like I said, I'm sure if Americans really had their way, they wouldn't have, but they were almost in this particular example, somewhat forced to, because the footage they okay. So I mean, a lot of people know the story of Robotech, how it came to be. It's actually three different Japanese anime shows with some similar themes, kind of jammed together into one overarching story, like three different anime shows that were never intended to be connected. The Americans at Harmony Gold connected them to meet the requirements for being syndicated, for television syndicated. You need 65 episodes. You needed at the time 65 episodes to like get television syndication, and these particular anime shows did not have that many. So Harmony Gold brought those shows to America, put them together, kind of stitched together an ongoing narrative, linking the shows together. So they were like different generations of the same story playing out. This is from the second generation. There are plenty of videos on the internet to explain that much better than I'm going to here. So if you're curious, you could look into that. Um, but the only reason that this happened was because they needed Harmony Gold. Robotech was very popular. Harmony Gold needed, well, they did this even before the show aired. They needed footage to continue Robotech. There weren't enough episodes of Super Dimensional Fortress Macross, so they needed footage from a show that they can continue as Robotech. And Super Dimensional Cavalry Southern Cross was used because the people at Harmony Gold, they had the rights to use those shows, and they're like, oh, okay, I think I can put this together, and maybe we can be kind of clever and kind of spin them like they're the same narrative. So they were kind of put in a position where and this was just going on the Japanese show. Why the Japanese show ever had this, that's a good question. On Macross, I heard the black lady, Claudia Grant, was based off of Uhura from like Star Trek, which checks out. So anyway, let's open up. We're kind of jumping right into the middle of the story. I'm thinking that we should really go back some and kind of explain how we got here. But this company Comico slash Comico, I'm not exactly, we'll call it Comico because that's just how I've heard other people pronounce it, but I'm still not convinced that that's actually the pronunciation of this company. They had an interesting, kind of ahead of their time as far as the coloring goes, because most comics like were done using a much more primitive coloring method on like newspaper quality paper, but this actually pops quite a bit more. I've heard some people kind of act like it's weird, but I actually don't think so. I'd say it's probably for these types of comics ahead of its time. Um, so let's see what's going on. Actually, okay, I could explain the story somewhat. I'll bring you up to speed. Bowie Grant is in the military. Musica, his girlfriend, is she's a member of the Robotech Masters Society. The Robotech Masters are the enemy. They look like humans for the most part. Kind of sound different, at least sometimes. Like if you watch the show Robotech, you'll see this. And he went aboard the Robotech Masters flagship, encountered her. They kind of like developed feelings for each other. He snuck her back onto Earth, and he's trying to get her to blend in and just like to pass her off as a human, but she's not. She's an alien, and her secret got out, and now the military police are after Musica to capture her. And Bowie decided to go AWOL to run away with Musica, and pretty interesting, love story they have. That's kind of interesting though. That is notable. It's a love story, an interracial love story in comics that actually has a depth. Very, very rare at the time. And yes, I was thinking about this type of stuff. Let me jump ahead a bit just so we could have something kind of interesting to look at while I'm, ruminating and stuff. So I did notice something that was kind of interesting about what I was talking about earlier with interracial relationships between black men and white women are forbidden in Hollywood. Okay, so a while ago I was watching like Billy Blank's movies. I was interested in exploring his like 90s catalog, like before he was like Tybo guy. He was like making these like cheesy B movie level like martial arts flicks, and I was watching them and I noticed it. I'm like, my God, this is like the most asexual action hero I've ever seen, ever in anything. You know what I mean? Like, he never got love interests. He was often teamed with professional wrestler Rowdy Roddy Piper in these movies. And you would see like Piper cleaning up with ladies. If it wasn't Piper, it was like this French dude, or maybe he's French Canadian. And it would always Billy Blanks would always be teamed with some white guy, even though it was like a Billy Blanks movie. He was the star. He'd always be teamed with the white guy, and the white guy would often be like getting these women and these white women and all this stuff, and Billy Blanks would just be like this asexual. I'm like, okay, this I see the formula. You know what I mean? It's like I see what you're doing. Honestly, going back and looking at this stuff, there's stuff that I find I just cannot watch because it's so blatantly like um like racist in some kind of way. And I guess what I mean by that is it's literally just racist. It's like, I'll let you go this far, or I'll let you go, I'm trying to give you a visual, I'll let you go this far, but only this far. I'm not going to let you go all the way, because I think that will be too much. I guess they were afraid that's going to be too much for the audience. And so it was like there was this like glass ceiling that these like black actors, black characters and stuff like could not get beyond, because it's like, how are they supposed to really make it when you won't let them go all the way? You know what I mean? And I was talking about this in like other videos, like about Jon Stewart, the Green Lantern, where I was talking about like the things that it's going to take to get Jon Stewart popular. You're going to have to like make things a little bumpy for some of these fans. They're just not gonna like it. I was talking about like the romance with Green Lantern and Hawk Girl, and this is kind of getting into it. So like if you really want to make these characters popular, like these action heroes, like say the Green Lantern, Jon Stewart, some of these Billy Blanks things, you can't let them just go a little bit, but you won't let them go all the way. Whereas guys like Schwarzenegger can just go as far as they need to, or Stallone or Seagal or Van Damme. You know what I mean? The black version's always like neutered some kind, literally almost like some kind of way, because the people behind the scenes think, oh no, if we actually, let the character excel like the white versions, then some people in the audience are going to feel a way about that, and they're not going to like us. Um, it's difficult for me to go back and watch some of that stuff, knowing that this is all up in your face. Like it's kind of hard for me to appreciate some things, because I just go back and look at this, and it's like it's so in your face, you know what I mean? And things have definitely worked on, things have definitely changed for the better, certainly, but it's not speculation. I think we all know it's not speculation. That stuff was going on intentionally, and that has a lot to do like with why like some of these black characters that we see in comics and media, why they only get like so popular sometimes. It's because they're on leashes. Like they can't really stretch their legs and really do the things that the white counterparts do. And the reason why they're on leashes is because, the people behind the scenes are afraid that if you kind of let them be, if you let them do the things that the white characters do, somebody's going to get mad and they're going to get pushed back. And what I will say is that that's not entirely unfounded, to be completely fair to them. It's not. Just like we're seeing with the Green Lantern and Hot Girl kind of stuff going on in DC Comics right now with the current 2025 Green Lantern core comic book. They're getting pushback for that, Is some of it racially motivated? Yes, I can guarantee you. So about that, that's why comic books like ZATSWAN that I work on are so important, because you don't have to worry about these restraints or me, getting cold feet because someone's going to get offended by something. People can get offended. I don't care. They could just go on and read whatever it is else they like. Like ZATSWAN's not getting in their way of and them enjoying whatever they want to enjoy. But I do want to draw some attention to things like this Robotech comic for being so notable, bucking the trend so much and being such like a early example of it. This is literally mid 80s, and I don't know how much of this comic book I'm going to go, probably not much. I'm probably not going to go too much panel by panel like I have like I did the Green Lantern comic, kind of because I really do feel like we're jumping in the middle of the story here, but I would like to talk some about that. I did want to bring out that aspect of it in particular because there's a lot of commentary on Robotech out there, that talks to people about, informs them about the general whole Robotech thing, the interesting circumstances about how it came about, but there's not a lot of commentary shining specifically on it for its championing of interracial relationships very, very early on in like the mid 1980s in animation, and I think it really deserves a spotlight for that, which is why I wanted to crack open this Robotech comic and show it off for anybody who's interested in that sort of thing. And unsurprisingly, so to talk more about just this comic in general, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. So if you're looking at some of this artwork and you're thinking, this looks weird to me, I mean, you wouldn't be completely alone in that, I'm sure. I'm sure this does look a little, like, take a look at this. This is Angelo Dante. Let's take a look at this guy here. I mean, it does look a little odd. Okay, so there's a lot we can talk about in regards with that. That is because Robotech is hugely influential in popularizing anime in the United States. It's not solely influential for that, but there are some shows that really did a lot. Like in Brazil, they saw Saint Seiya. We didn't get that in the United States way back then. So I know like Saint Seiya is like massively popular with like Latin Americans, I think especially like Brazilians. We did not get that over in the US, like probably unfortunately, I would say. But what we did get was Robotech. It wasn't common for anime to be exported over here. It did happen before Robotech with things like Star Blazers, which was Space Battleship Yamato, and of course Speed Racer. Like that's a classic. And I think Gigantor was brought over here, but I'm not sure exactly when that happened because I mean I wasn't like around when that happened. I think like I like saw Gigantor like well after it was brought over here. It's like this old black and white show, but I would say the things that really popularized anime over here, like made it go total mainstream, were probably, of course, Dragon Ball Z. I would say it was a combination of Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, maybe Sailor Moon. Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and Sailor Moon. I would say those were the things that. I would say yes, I would give them the credit, but there were forerunners to them. Like there was still a culture in the United States that was like into anime, and I think a lot and Robotech. So before those like big shows, the Dragon Ball Z's and the Sailor Moons and the Pokemons, like kind of took the ball and totally ran with it. The ground had already been paved by things like Robotech, so Robotech kind of primed that landscape for things like Dragon Ball Z because there was a culture in the United States that was like really into anime. You had things that it would like come on the Sci-Fi Channel, and it would be like a special event, when Saturday anime's on, and we did get really some of the cool movies and OVAs over here, like Vampire Hunter D and whatchamacallit, Galaxy Express 39. We did get a lot of really cool stuff over here. What happened later on in the 2000s was that essentially that dam burst, where it's like people love anime so much, they started exporting so much of it over here. And it got like, we were getting the anime, like before we would get like the best of the best. That's why people loved it so much. Of course, there was a lot of great stuff that we missed, but we did get a lot of good stuff. In the 2000s, they were exporting so much stuff like Bobo, and things that that weren't that great, and there was an oversaturation of it, and I think the bubble kind of burst on it. But the thing is, like anime, it became kind of like rap music in a sense, where I know like when rap first came out, people thought it was going to be like a fad, like, oh, this isn't going to last. But I mean, rap never really went away is the thing, you know what I mean? Like, so anime was kind of like that, even though maybe the bubble did burst on it sometime in the 2000s, it still remained like, and it kind of has ebbed and flowed in popularity, but it's known, it's mainstream, people know what it is, where it comes from, the tropes are known about what it's about. So I mean, that was a long diatribe, but we're getting back to this artwork. Okay, this is 1985 here. Yes, some of this art probably looks pretty jank, you know, by some standards, I bet. And the reason for that is because let's check and see who. I think, you know what? I think Mike Barron might be writing this. He's probably not, but trying to see who the writer is. He might be, actually. Mike Barron, who's famous for writing like The Flash, like Post Crisis. Where are our credits? Looking for the credits page here. Oh, I am right, actually. Mike Barron is writing this. Harrison Fong, I've never heard of him. Um, So what I was going to say is that what we are getting here is Western comic. Like, this is the first, some of the first examples of Western comic book artists trying to emulate an anime style. And they're doing the best they can at that. These are not manga artists or mangaka. These are not anime artists. These are like comic book artists. And they're looking at this distinct style in Robotech, which is literally foreign to them. And Robotech is super popular. So they are trying to get the book to understandably look like Robotech. But they have to get that look, they need to unlearn some things they've learned, learn new things, and it's just really like it's very new to them. And so we have Western comic book artists not being very familiar with anime, and they're trying to draw like anime. And because of that, it's kind of coming, some of the art's coming across looking kind of weird. You know what I mean? It doesn't, it looks a little odd. And honestly, I could definitely see that as a turnoff for some people. I really can. For me personally, there is a part of me, honestly, that thinks it's kind of charming. Just because I do know what's happening here. Like, oh wow, these are like, I'm aware this is 1985, and like, I'm just aware of the landscape of things of at that time. Like, anime, the saturation of anime was not over here at that time. Robotech is hugely responsible, as I said, for popularizing anime over here, and it was very, very, very popular. And so they wanted to make comics about it, but they only know what they know. They only know how to do what they know. They only know how to make comics like they know how to make comics. So you get this kind of result. It's essentially Westerners trying, it's an early example of Westerners trying to figure out anime and manga style. That's what this is. And I think, it, first of all, I think there's somewhat of a historical value to that. And I'm able to appreciate the context of everything. And, it just kind of is interesting. I think, like, wow, look at this. This is like Westerners, an early example of Westerners trying to figure out how to do anime art. And what's interesting is these are actually like artists that have some training and practice at doing art. Like, the art is sound enough. You know what I mean? It's clear enough. You can definitely tell that the artists can. You can tell the artists can draw and ink and color, but it's still a little weird. There's still an uncanny valleyness to it. I find it kind of interesting, and these comics were very neat at the time, I would imagine, because back then there was no YouTube where you can just pull something up and watch it when you want. Probably there were a lot of kids that loved Robotech but couldn't watch it just whenever they wanted to. So if they got some of these comics, it's like they can kind of live the Robotech adventures, when they wanted to. They can bust out the comics and read them when they wanted. So I don't think I'm gonna go on too long with this video. I think maybe we will take a look at some Robotech comics in the future, do a deep dive. But I did want to point this out. I do think it's like going along with some of the themes that I've been talking about lately. I do think it's like a really, there's a lot of historical value to this on in many different ways. Just as I was saying, there's a lot of value in it just being an early example, like Robotech, like being one of the things that played a huge role in popularizing anime over in the United States. And there's a lot of historical value in this being an example, an early example of Westerners trying to figure out anime, and coming up with this sort of interesting result. And it's also there's a lot of historical value in this being an interracial relationship that actually has depth. By depth, I mean it's important recurring characters that play a huge role in the show, and we see their relationship actually develop, and their relationship plays a huge role in the show. And that's like really like noteworthy. It's noteworthy especially in 1985, like when this came out. So I wanted to discuss some of Robotech and express some of my interest and appreciation just in some of the things going on with it. And we will talk more about this later on. I will likely return to deep diving the Green Lantern arc that I'm working on right now, that Mosaic one. I'll come back pretty soon with that, but we will get more into Robotech. So stay tuned for that, and be sure to check out my own comic, ZATSWAN Multiversal Guardian, in the link below. You can purchase it on Amazon in paperback or e-reader format. That would be much appreciated. I think you'll like it, and be sure to leave reviews, and I will talk to all of you again very soon. Take care.